All right, everyone. Trump has now managed to secure some private land that's necessary in order to continue with wall development. What's happened is a series of victories for the Trump admin over the last few months on immigration. You had the Ninth Circuit was shot down by SCOTUS on Pentagon funding. An injunction had been issued against Trump saying he can't use discretionary military spending on the border wall because it's not a national emergency. That was overruled. SCOTUS paved the way for him. He's got his money. He's got asylum seeking. He's able to bus people into sanctuary cities and states preferentially in order to make the problem of illegal immigration more, the responsibility of those who overwhelmingly are for illegal immigration. I think that's perfectly fine, by the way. Someone comes here illegally, they should be deported under our existing laws. But if they're not able to be deported, because the legislature won't do its job and because of activistic courts, they should at least be where, in San Francisco or something like that, where there'll be a warm welcome. Really what we should do is we should take these McMansion-class fucking yuppies and shack up illegals in their homes. We should turn their McMansions into developments like that. We should put them as close to the gated communities as possible to convince these NIMBY liberals otherwise about their own fiscal policies. Anyway, Trump has apparently secured several large tracts of private land, and so now development on the wall can begin. Now the benchmark is 400 to 500 miles of wall by the end of the year. This is a combination of new wall and retrofitting sort of the outdated shit that's there, which is little more than a double fence. The wall that's being built now will go 30 feet up in the air. It's more than twice as high, I believe, as some of the barriers that are currently there. It also goes into the ground, obviously. It's easier to maintain and cheaper than like a brick wall. You do have to realize there is seismic activity. There's constant ground movement in several regions along the U.S. border. The problem with the kind of medieval fortification some people had in mind with the Great Wall of Trump is that it wouldn't make sense. Maintaining it would be so expensive that it wouldn't be worth building. It'd be better just to not have a fucking barrier there and let people in illegally and say fuck it. It'd be easier to just set up like pods, machine gun pods on the border at that point. Yeah, it'd be a big human rights issue, but it'd be cheaper to litigate that into some world court than it would be to maintain the wall. So the wall has to be able to flex a little bit. You want to be able to see through it to some degree because that's a good idea. I think that it'll be successful largely. Now, of course, some of this is not new wall. We need to understand that some of this is nothing more than retrofitting wall that's there. For everything else, you need to purchase additional land. Some of that's state-held and private land. Easier to get it from the states, arguably. It's a U.S. national emergency issue. Federal supremacy kicks in, and I think they've successfully done so. As long as a person's voluntarily willing to sell their land on the border, that's great. Like some rancher has 50 acres. He's like, well, I've got several acres of it. Basically right up against Mexico. They're asking me for that land, and they need a little bit further to be able to move stuff into there to actually build. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, just pay me and I'll give you the land, or I'll let you build on it and I still own it, but then there's a wall there with access, right-of-way. That can work. The thing is this, some groups aren't willing. It's like Cards Against Humanity there bought a chunk of the U.S. border at one point, partially as a gag, I think partially to sell their products, which is, admirable. It's very capitalistic of them. They're going to be forced to sell under eminent domain. I'm not a fan of eminent domain. Trump has said openly, like, I'm a big fan of eminent domain. It's a wonderful thing. I don't think that way. I think it's a necessary evil. I think it should be very constrained, and I also think it should be expensive. I think when the government uses eminent domain, it shouldn't be the person gets the value of their land or their home or whatever. It should be multiple times the value, because that helps prevent what we saw, like, I think 20 or 15 years ago in Florida. There were some developers that got the state or the local government to use eminent domain to take property away from homeowners there, single homeowners that had, small, middle-class, single-family homes near the shore. They wanted to turn it into condos and shit. The idea was that eminent domain could be used because it was for the public good. The idea was, while you're raising tax revenue, this underdeveloped land is being properly developed, therefore it's for the public good. That's a slimy, dubious, shitty argument. It's not good for optics. It's certainly not the intent of the idea of government supremacy over land. It's not really for the public good. That's an illusion. I oppose it completely. So it should be much more expensive. In order to remove the profit motive from such slimy moves for developers' purposes, it should be much more expensive. And it shouldn't come out of some Like to say, well, we're going to raise taxes a little bit to pay for this land to overcome that. That'd be, less popular, thus preventing eminent domain from being used as often. Good idea. Weren't there some ranchers near Area 51 recently that they confiscated their farm? They didn't want to sell and they dragged it out for years. Offer them more than it's worth. Give them an offer they can't refuse. As far as the border, you only have to buy the tract of land once. Hell, once you're done building the barrier, stick it in as a right-of-way with access for the military and shit, and then resell the fucking land. Who cares? Or just don't even take it from the people. Just create a right-of-way. Pay them for that. Make it clear, we're not kicking you off your land. We just need to build this wall on the back of your property, so don't mind us. Wall and a little e-barrier, and we'll be gone. But here's 100K, so don't worry too much. Yeah, your view's impeded. Your view of the glorious sweeping dunes of northern Mexico is impeded. We'll pay you for that too. Don't worry. If I had land on the border, I'd gladly sell it, because I can't imagine why you'd want to live on the U.S. border. You're not even allowed to defend one side of your own land without causing a diplomatic crisis. I would think that'd be a problem. But Trump, this is a major victory, because getting this privately held land is a prerequisite to building anything in those areas. This is additional building. This is hundreds of miles of new wall. This is what Trump promised. He said, I will build a wall on the southern border. That requires two things. Once you've got the money and the materials and everything, you need to expand the barriers that are there, and you need to improve what's already there by and large. There are some areas that are already fully secure, especially, ironically enough, in Southern California, parts of that, and Southern Texas. Most of it is still just a dual chain link fence. It's not a fully functioning wall. It's not up to modern standards. It's not enforced properly, and the Democrats have been, key in making sure that it's not enforced. They want the problem to get worse, not better. They want the detention facilities to be overrun. They want cartel crime. They want no wall. They want no solution, because then it stays a problem and they can campaign on it. And they can talk about how much they love immigrants and how Trump is evil and racist and hates them, so they can try to take power in that way. Now, of course, it's a bunch of bullshit, but that's what their selling point is. By the way, it has worked in certain border communities. Local and state politics kick in at some point, too. Arizona and Texas may be more or less red, but New Mexico and California, they're quite blue. I wouldn't be surprised, by the way, if Elizabeth Warren does become the nominee, New Mexico might go in the other direction. So might Nevada. I think the Democrats might end up wasting their Southwest advantage that they've been building for the last 2 decades. It'd be quite a thing when your candidate is an extremely white, waspish, self-righteous, holier-than-thou NIMBYer, NIMBY liberal pretending to be a progressive who lied about her race since the 1970s in order to game the system. That's not going to endear you with the Cherokee Nation vote, I don't think. I think it might be a little bit of a problem. It'd be funny, actually, like the native tribes get together and hold their actual powwow, as opposed to Elizabeth Warren. Hers come with mayonnaise and ketchup and shit. They get together and they decide to endorse Trump, actually. How funny that would be. The Democrats would be at a loss, and then they subsequently lose the election. I wonder if they would regress to talking about Indians or something. Like, the Democrats would start being racist against Native Americans maybe at that point. So, whoa, these fucking race traitors. This would be so funny. Why didn't you listen to Al Sharpton? He's been your friend for so long, as the casino owners have bilked your people out of all of their fucking money and, handed you firewater instead of the check you're supposed to get. And they keep you high and drunk and complacent at the behest of the U.S. government, actually, which designed that system to keep you weak in the first place. Interesting how these things work within politics. So hopefully the wall will be built. It's good for everyone who's in this country. Immigration is fine, but do it the proper way. Reform, by the way, again, to Trump, reform the legal immigration system. It's overburdensome. Eliminate the visa lottery. It's pointless. Get rid of immigration quotas. They're pointless. It takes years and years to get into the United States for someone who is well-off, hard-working, honest. They've got no criminal record. They speak the language. They've got no problems. They want to come here and build a better life because the U.S. is better than their home country. They can't get in. It takes them 5 fucking years to get conditional residency or something. Meanwhile, someone walks across the border and they're given all sorts of free shit by the Democrats who sit there and use them as a campaign pawn. It's ridiculous. It's fucking ludicrous. That's about all. Peace out.